Joining me today through International Justice Mission Canada, I have Lorianne Dueck Rebello. She's an advocacy and public engagement with the nonprofit organization. Lorianne, thank you for taking the time.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So, we are going to be talking today, I believe, about OSEC. So, first of all,
hmm
share what that is and really shine a light on how bad is this issue?
Sure. Brace yourselves, folks. But thanks for asking. This is a really important issue. And at International Justice Mission, we've been working on this in the Philippines for a long time, but it's not just in the Philippines. So OSEC stands for the Online Sexual Exploitation of Children, words that should never be in the same sentence. But really, what we've seen in the last, I would say, over a decade has been this increase of an adult in one country contacting an adult in another country, paying them for live streamed abuse of a child. So, adult to adult, there's a payment involved, which makes it trafficking, also makes that money laundering. And then the adults on one side is then videoing, live streaming child abuse. And so this is something, unfortunately, Canada's in the top four for purchasing this content. There's been a report from the Philippines Anti-Money Laundering Council that has shown that we've been flagged for suspicious transactions. So this is something that Canada's participating in. We also believe Canada can help stop. And it's something our team's working really hard in the Philippines to do because in the Philippines, 1 in 100 children is a victim of this, and that's about 500,000 children. So it's a really big problem and it's increasing, and there's other countries that are getting involved as well. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yes. Thank you for shedding a light on, where Canada stands in it and how many children are unfortunately affected by it. How does IJM work towards helping end OSEC or help rescue children or whatever?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking. So there's two different sides to this, and that's why I think we're here talking with Canadians. So, of course, we have our team in the Philippines. They've been working hard, working with the Philippines National Police, working with the national government there to identify where these children are and help them get out of the situation, to get justice, to get aftercare, to make sure that and some of these children, they can be as young as a few months old. The average age is 11, but into the teenage years. And so they might not even know what's happened to them. And so really IJM is working with local partners to make sure they get a normal childhood, that they get the healing they need, the restoration they need, the justice they need. And also, of course, making sure that the people who were hurting them also get justice. That can get complicated depending on what that relationship was between the adult and the child. But that's what we're doing in the Philippines. We've also launched let me see if I get this right, the IJM's Center to End OSEC. And that's more of like a global hub that does research. It actually has staff from around the world, and they're working with law enforcement in multiple countries. So we've had people speak in Canada to the OPP and RCMP. They've had discussions in Australia, and that's the group that's really kind of talking about, what can we do internationally to stop this? Is there legislation that we need? Is it that law enforcement in other countries like Canada need more tools to kind of find this? Like, what's going on internationally? Because we can keep rescuing children, we can keep supporting the Philippines. They're doing incredible work. They're working really, really hard. But unfortunately, if there's people in other countries who are still going to send the money, well, the crime's going to continue, or it's just going to move to another country. If the Philippines gets great at protecting children, which they're on track to do that. Well, we don't want Canadians to find a different country that maybe isn't as great as that. And so that's where we come in. And I can share a little bit more about, what we want to see here in Canada in a little bit.
I would love to know, is there legislation right now? Tell me, please. It is illegal to do what these Canadians are doing.
Yes, it is
Okay.
100% illegal. So we're not
Okay.
talking about something that has not already been um, that's just able to keep going. Unfortunately, like I said, with a live stream, it's harder to catch. Once you drop the call, there potentially is no evidence other than the financial transactions, some chats. And so I've actually gotten to meet with law enforcement who have tracked down the connection between Canada and the Philippines. They have gotten justice. The person in Canada has been sentenced. The child in the Philippines has been found, is now, in restoration and care. So this is illegal. It's child sexual exploitation material. It's illegal. Videos, photos, live stream, it's all not able to happen. What we want to see is just stronger legislation. And even we want to see that devices and platforms, phones, that these are made with child safety in mind. Unfortunately, there are different features, but they're not always keeping up to pace with, unfortunately, the rate at which some of these crimes or harmful content are evolving.
Yeah. When it comes to partnership with local authorities here in Canada and authorities out in the Philippines, why is that partnership important with IJM?
Oh, it's so important. I mean, these are cross-border crimes, and we know that trafficking, exploitation doesn't always take into consideration different borders. And so seeing collaboration between international law enforcement is huge. And at IJM, we love collaboration. That's how we get things done. That's how we can see a safer world, how we can see children protected. And so, I mean, law enforcement has been partnering together long before IJM has been around. We've been around almost 30 years. However, in the time we have been there, we continue to foster that. And so IJM in the Philippines is part of a group of law enforcement organizations. I'm forgetting which countries are involved now. And IJM also sits at that table to really help um, provide ideas, best practices, and help support as these international law enforcement work together on cases. Because sometimes the evidence can show up in different countries, or there's children that have been abused in different countries, but by the same person. And so you end up getting this team of law enforcement who are working together, sharing evidences. Of course, there's protocols in place, making sure everyone's privacy is protected, and we're all following the laws in different countries. But it's pretty incredible. I've heard a few stories of how people have been able to work together to make sure children in multiple countries are safe. And that's something IJM we want to see more and more of.
What does recovery look like for some of these kids that are rescued?
Wow. Okay. It's a big question. Some of my colleagues actually, they'd be better suited to answer this because they got to go to the Philippines and go visit and be in the aftercare shelter. So I'm going to be sharing secondhand here.
Mhm.
But it's a long journey and it can be years. And so what that looks like is a lot of counseling, of course, for the child has gone through incredible suffering, unimaginable suffering, at the hands of an adult that they likely trusted, and may not even, like I said, know what has happened. And so there's hours and hours of counseling. There's almost a little bit teaching like what is healthy relationships again, what does that look like? And then, of course, helping them determine, what would you like to do next? As they're getting older, of course, helping them get through school, and eventually, once they're at the age, helping them look into, what are next options. And IGM does have metrics on, when is someone considered fully recovered, fully restored. And I'm not fully detailed on what all those are, but we don't leave anyone, and our partners that we've trained don't leave anyone until they've hit those. And then some of them actually want to join IJM's survivor networks. They're feeling strong enough and recovered enough that they want to share their story, share what happened to them. They sometimes go on the radio, just like I am today, but they're sharing to people in their community. They might be talking to government. They sometimes even travel internationally to say, look, this is what happened to me as a child, but it happened to me by people in other countries. What can you do to help stop this and make sure it doesn't happen to any other child? So there's a lot of offshoots, and some people they just want to have a normal life afterwards. They want to leave it behind them. That's okay too. It's really up to the survivor to decide how they would like to live their next steps. They have agency in that, and IJM and our partners, we are supporting them to make sure that they can reach that.
I just want to say, as a woman who cares deeply about this subject, I so appreciate that you guys walk that long journey of recovery with these survivors. So thank you. Is there
Pleasure.
anything that Canadians can do to help? And if so, what?
Yes, I'm glad you asked this. That's my job, advocacy and public engagement. So, what can Canadians do? So, a lot of you probably were following the news or just, looking on front lawns around your block and saw that we just had an election. So, there was a campaigning period. Now we have a new government. And something that IJM was happy to see was that every party said that they were going to work on protecting children online. So no matter who you voted for, they said that they were going to work on this. And so what we want to see now, the Liberal government, which is in power now, made some specific commitments. I'm going to read them out. And we want them to hold to this. And so my action step for you is going to be related to that. So the Liberal government said that they would introduce legislation to protect children from online crimes like exploitation and sextortion. They said that they would give new funding to the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. That's based in Winnipeg. We love them. We've talked with them. They do excellent work. They were going to tighten laws to crack down on child luring, including raising the maximum sentence. And they were going to give law enforcement more time to prosecute sexual offenses against children. So that means giving law enforcement more time to gather evidence, look into things, which is important because these can be very tricky cases. So these were all written out in the platform. So what we'd like to see is that the Liberal government follows through on this, and they're going to need the partnership of other parties. So again, no matter who your MP is, IJM, we work with everyone. We work with all government officials. And so if you go to ijm.ca/CHVN, you're going to see an article summarizing what we talked about today with a template email. Because email sometimes is the easiest. You can also use that and call your MP. You could also use that as a script and go meet with your MP because their job is to listen to you. And so we want to see these commitments followed through because they're going to protect children in Canada from abuse, but it's also going to help stop Canadians from abusing children everywhere. We don't want to see children anywhere hurt by this. And so we think Canada has a role to play in protecting children here and now in our country and also stopping that abuse from getting anywhere else. So that's my action step for Canadians is follow through on these commitments and stronger legislation that'll stop live streaming and make the internet safe by design for children.
Incredible. Really appreciate your time today, Lorianne. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
Just thank you. Thanks for having us. We so appreciate CHVN. We so appreciate everyone who's listening today. I know this might be your commute, or you're just doing some after work reading. I know this is serious topics. We really believe that together we can make a difference. And we know that from survivors around the world, they are so grateful that their voices and stories are being heard in Canada and Canadians are taking it seriously and want to see the world a better place. So thank you so much, Sylvia, for having me here today. And looking forward to seeing what we can do together in the next couple months.
Yeah. As you probably already know, this is something near and dear to my heart. And while every time it is hard to talk about, it is so vitally important to talk about. So thank you for the work that you do, Lorianne. Really appreciate connecting every time.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a great rest of your day.